The Battle of Osan is one of the most decisive battles in human history. Fought between 1973 and 1974 in what is now South Korea, it was the first major battle between North Korean and American forces. Both sides spent the next 2 decades bolstering their forces and developing new weapons. This culminated in a massive propaganda display on July 26th when 40,000 North Korean troops performed a mass defection ceremony in the DMZ, complete with music, lights, and fireworks. Needless to say, the South Koreans were not impressed. They pushed all the way up to the Taedong River, which was much further north than Park had anticipated. This put them in a precarious position because now they had thousands of troops stranded far away from their supply lines. To make matters worse, the North Koreans regrouped and counterattacked. They pushed the South Koreans all the way back down to the Han River. They saw through the ruse and prepared for a counterattack. Before the Battle of Osan, South Korea didn't have any sort of Marine Corps. They just had a regular old army. But after seeing how effective the U.S. Marines were in combat, President Park decided that he wanted his own elite fighting force. So in 1974, he created the ROK Marine Corps. Today, the Marines are one of the most powerful fighting forces in the world. They play a key role in defending South Korea from the threat of North Korea. Both sides dug in and prepared for a long siege. It was a hard-fought victory that had a profound impact on the future of the Korean Peninsula. So remember the Battle of Osan, pray for the fallen, and celebrate the heroes who fought to defend freedom. The fighting continued intermittently until December, when the North Koreans made one final push to capture the town of Osan. It basically just said that both sides would stop shooting at each other and that the North Koreans had to withdraw from all the territory they had gained during the conflict. In total, the North Koreans lost around 200 square miles of territory, which is about half of what they had occupied at the start of the war. This attack caught the South Koreans by surprise, and it looked like the North Koreans were going to make a clean sweep. But at the last minute, a group of 200 South Korean commandos launched a counterattack, driving the North Koreans back from Osan. The North Koreans received tanks, artillery, and other military hardware from their allies in China and the Soviet Union, while the South Koreans received supplies from the United States. They pushed the North Koreans all the way back to the Yalu River, which is the border between North Korea and China. The North Koreans were in full retreat. They left behind over 1,000 dead, 3,000 wounded, and 21 prisoners of war. It established South Korea as the dominant power in the region and set the stage for the rapid economic growth that would occur in the following decades. South Korea went from being a poor, war-torn country to being one of the world's wealthiest nations in just a few short years. The South Koreans, on the other hand, suffered only 500 casualties. By the early 1970s, both sides had built up a significant military presence along the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. And yet, despite its historical importance, it is virtually unknown outside of Korea. I mean, you've probably never even heard of it, which is kind of crazy, considering that at one point during the battle, America almost deployed the nuclear option. The Korean Peninsula has been a tinderbox, just waiting for a large-scale conflict to erupt ever since the armistice was signed in 1953. In July of 1973, the North Koreans began a campaign of psychological warfare, broadcasting messages across the DMZ calling for the South Koreans to rise up against their government and defect to the North. On August 18, 1973, the South Korean Army launched an offensive along the DMZ, quickly pushing the North Koreans back from the border. But this wasn't part of a larger strategy to unify the peninsula under Seoul's control. South Korea's president at the time, Park Chung-hee, only wanted to push the North Koreans back across the 38th parallel so he could build a road connecting Seoul with the border. It was an ambitious project that would bring the two Koreas closer together and remind everyone that there was once a unified Korea before the Japanese came and ruined everything. Also, it was an election year, and what better way to get some votes than by kicking some communist teeth? So when the North Koreans fled south, the South Koreans gave chase. At this point, the fighting settled into a stalemate. This was the turning point of the war. With their supply lines secure, the South Koreans were able to bring in reinforcements and launch a massive counteroffensive. The fighting finally ended on January 16, 1974, with the signing of the Korean Armistice Agreement. Now, this victory had major implications for the future of the Korean Peninsula. But perhaps even more importantly, the battle led to the creation of the Republic of Korea Marine Corps. Yeah, that's right. The Battle of Osan may be a largely forgotten conflict, but its importance in Korean history cannot be overstated. This has been a brief part of history of South Korea. And if you want to watch more videos like this, then please subscribe.